live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lowering the Barrier, the podcast. That name is kind of still being workshopped, honestly, but this is episode 1, and today we're talking about fat loss. I'm Alex.
And I'm Maddie.
This is, if you don't know, this is my wife. I'm sure most of you who are here on episode 1 know that, but I'm thinking maybe there could be people that don't know, and when this podcast hits, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million downloads, they go back to the first episode and they're like, who is Maddie? And so she's my wife, as the photos behind us show. We've been married for
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and together since April 2017, so 6.5 years now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, very cool. So anyway, today we're talking about fat loss. We are recording this on January 1st, 2024. I want to talk about some of the resolutions we created, but I thought, should we save that for kind of like the goal setting and resolution podcast that we have planned?
When do you think that will come out?
I don't know. I guess we'll just quickly touch on it. So some of my resolutions or goals this year are, I would like 25,000 followers on Instagram. There are certain business goals that I'd like to hit for membership in both the A-Team and Forward Forever. I'd like to start reading more. Ideally, 1 book a month would be a good minimum target. If I go above that, great. Just finished up Contagious. I didn't love it. I would give it a 3 out of 5. Now I'm reading $100 Million Deals by Alex Hormozy, and this one seems promising, but we'll see. Yeah, I think that's the majority. I want to go on 3 trips this year. Mm-hmm. That should be it for me. What about you?
Yeah, I have a reading goal, which is pretty standard. I think I always have a reading goal for the year. Mm-hmm. Definitely trying to read more nonfiction. Mm-hmm. Building a story brand right now. It's been great. What other goals do I have? Oh, I have some fitness goals, being a little bit more consistent, especially with cardio. So working on biking more often. Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Yeah. And I was thinking about getting a rower. I know I mentioned that, but because then we could just both do cardio at the same time. Not that that's something we've ever done in the past, but
never.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, let's get into it right now. So today we're talking about fat loss, and I want to, make the differentiation between weight loss and fat loss. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about steps and how to structure a fat loss phase. We'll give you some notes and some practical tips, expected rates, scale fluctuations, why they happen, when to expect them, et cetera, et cetera. So by the end of this podcast episode, you should be able to walk away knowing basically everything that you possibly could about how to set up a fat loss phase, how to adjust a fat loss phase, and your, managing expectations, which is very, very important. All right, let's get right into it. So when people say, I want to lose weight, they should be, I'm going to be a stickler, and they probably should be a little bit more specific, because weight loss is very different than fat loss. In our body, we have body fat, we have muscle, we have water, we have organs like, brain, heart, skin, among a few other organs. And when we lose weight, we are losing it from a combination of both body fat and muscle. And if we care about both strength and body composition and aesthetics and health, we want to shift the majority of that to be body fat and not muscle. So the way that we do that is, well, there's actually a lot of ways that we're going to do that. We'll probably get into that a little bit later, but it is very important that you shift your thinking to be the majority fat loss and not just weight loss. Okay, so if somebody was setting up a fat loss diet for the very first time, there are 4 major steps that I would tell them to follow. First is you need to calculate your calorie maintenance. And you can do this using an online calculator like tdeecalculator.net. This will give you a pretty good estimate, but it's not going to be this super accurate number. I think a lot of people go to these calculators thinking, they plug in their stats and it's, 2,200 calories. That is my maintenance. No. I mean, maybe it might be, but it's kind of just like throwing a dart at a dartboard, maybe relatively accurate, but not necessarily a pinpoint thing. All right, so calculate your calorie maintenance. That's step 1. So let's say it gives you something like 2,200 calories. Next, step 2, I want you to track your intake meticulously. And this means using a food scale, weighing out every portion of food, no eyeballs, and weight measurements, not volume. It's really important to make that distinction. Volume measurements, like something like a cup, you might think like a cup is a cup, but honestly, it's not. It can vary
drastically.
Yeah, very drastically.
If you cook regularly, that's a great thing to test out, even, is just weigh out 1 cup versus doing the like measuring spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you'll see that it might be close, but it's definitely not 100% accurate,
Those small changes, they really, really add up.
especially on like higher calorie things like your oils.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sauces.
yeah,
Yeah. Huge. So next, step 3 is I want you to track your weight 3 to 7 times per week. And I want you to do that for 2 to 3 weeks. And then look at weekly averages. Is it going up? Is it going down? Or is it staying the same? And what I'd like you to do is you can use an app called Happy Scale. There's plenty of apps that do this, I'm sure, but Happy Scale is a free app that looks at weight averages and like 7-day averages, etc. I also have a free data sheet that's downloadable, at least at the time of this posting I do. And if it ever goes away, I'm sorry. So, shout out to the listeners who are here since day one.
also when it comes to tracking your weight, you want to be pretty consistent with when you do that and how you do that.
Yeah, good addition. So my recommendation for tracking your weight, don't do this randomly throughout the day. You're going to be heavier later in the day than you would be first thing in the morning because you've drank water, you've eaten stuff. That's it. You've drank water and you've eaten stuff, and you've drank, coffee or whatever else too. But yeah, your weight is going to fluctuate a lot through the day. That's totally normal. So my recommendation for weighing yourself is first thing in the morning, after using the bathroom, before eating or drinking anything, and maybe roughly the same time every day. But I guess if you're doing it in the morning after you wake up, it's probably going to be the same. But wearing minimal clothing, if you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt one day, and then the next day you're wearing a hoodie and sweatpants or jeans or something like that,
Right.
that's like a 3-pound difference probably. So step 4 is if you are going up on weekly averages over time and you want to be going down, then reduce your calories by 500 to 700, then reassess. And it's really important that you don't look at week 1 and then week 2 and you're like, yeah, I'm basically staying the same. And then week 3, you get one weigh in and you're up by a pound. You're like, oh, Alex said reduce by 700 calories. Let's do it. Be a little bit more gradual in this. The worst thing that you can do, in my opinion, is just send it. Like making these super drastic cuts. That's a recipe for disaster. So 500 to 700 calorie cut if you are going up. If you're staying the same, I would reduce calories by 300 to 500, then sit there for 2 to 3 weeks and then reassess. And if you're going down but not fast enough, there are 2 things you could do. You could just increase your daily step target, or you could reduce your calorie intake, but I'd be really gradual. If you're just like, I'm going down, but I'd like to go a little bit faster, don't make a massive cut. Change it by 50, maybe 100 tops, maybe even 200 calories absolute tops. You could go faster than that, but there are trade-offs to going faster or slower that we'll talk about later in this episode. Anything you want to add right here?
I don't think so.
All right, so just to recap, the 4 steps: calculate your calorie maintenance, track intake meticulously, track weight 3 to 7 times per week for 2 to 3 weeks, and then adjust accordingly. So if you're going up, decrease calories quite a bit. If you're staying the same, decrease calories a little bit. And if you're going down but not fast enough, decrease calories very, very marginally. Okay, we moved through that part pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we're just going to go through some of the tips and notes that we've written down. So a lot of people say that when you're in a fat loss phase, you shouldn't do it for more than 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. These are totally arbitrary numbers. There is no physiological maximum amount of time that you should be in a fat loss phase. It is psychological, so it's a mental thing. For me, honestly, psychologically, I start getting pretty burnt out around 8 weeks. Now, whether that's due to I don't usually have too much body fat on me,
Right.
so I kind of get to that very pretty lean point around week 8, or if it's just 2 months of tracking things super. Well, then again, I was going to say tracking things super meticulously, but I track basically every day.
Right.
And
very meticulously.
Very meticulously, using a food scale every day for the last maybe 3.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's not that. I guess it's just, what it is. I think it's dealing with hunger.
Yeah.
I think
it gets tough.
I think it gets, it gets pretty frustrating. You've seen me in all of my fat loss phases at this point, and you know that I start getting a little bit irritable, just a little bit, but it does start to get a little bit harder. So if you're at week 8 or week 6 or week 7 or week 8. Don't feel like, oh, I have to make it to week 12 before I can take a break. And on the other side, don't feel like, oh, it's week 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have to take a break because there's something that's going on. There's nothing that's happening physiologically that'll prevent you from losing weight. There's a metabolic adaptation, which I might talk about, but that's unavoidable anyway. I don't know if I want to touch on that in this episode. Maybe I'll briefly touch on it a little bit.
I also think it's important to note that it might creep up fast. Like there might be like life things that are going on that suddenly make being in a cut so much worse or like so much harder because you already have these other stressors. And you might have done cuts in the past and suddenly this one you hit week 6 and normally you're blowing through 6 weeks. And now it's like, this is so much harder. And I think it's totally fair that each time you go through a cut or a fat loss phase, it's going to feel a little different based on what's kind of happening in your life.
Yeah, totally agree. It's also time of the year,
Yeah.
Maybe somebody is, whether they have kids or, it's just the holidays and they think, oh, well, I did a cut last summer and it was totally easy, but now it's the weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas and it's harder. Why would that be?
Right.
And it's like, you just have to think about, maybe pre-planning a little bit of, I can do cuts this week, or this month, not that month. It might be a really smart way to approach things and kind of you don't have to plan out the entire 52-week year because, moving into fat loss or maintenance or a bulk, whatever your goals are, these things can be a little bit reactionary, but having just a little bit of foresight and planning probably goes a really long way. Next, I want to talk about scale fluctuations. I think this is the thing that messes with people's head the most. And honestly, I have a lot of sympathy for women specifically because of their period.
Yeah.
Their weight.
It'll jump a lot.
Yeah. Like they haven't done anything wrong.
And it's literally overnight.
Yeah.
You're just suddenly 5 pounds up.
Seriously, 3 to 8 pounds could be normal for a woman experiencing her period, which is pretty psychotic. I think if men experience the same thing, I just think the cards are sort of stacked against women for that reason. And not to mention, it seems like guys can lose weight faster. Now, honestly, most of that is just because they have more weight to lose a lot of times, like in general on averages. So anyway, scale fluctuations, they are inevitable. But the reason that they happen is outside of even with your period, you're just holding on to more water. It's not like you just went to bed and gained 8 pounds of body fat or 1 pound of body fat or anything like that. Very roughly, this isn't a perfect number, but very roughly about 3,500 calories is equivalent to 1 pound of body fat. Now, that's not a perfect number, but that's the number that we mostly use. I think that's pretty well agreed upon. So you would have to, in order to gain 1 pound of body fat overnight, you would have to eat 3,500 calories above your calorie maintenance. Let's say your calorie maintenance is 2,000 calories per day. You'd have to eat 5,500 calories. I can't overemphasize how hard that is to do in one day.
That's a lot of food.
The one day where, was it September 2022, when I was really lean and I ended the cut and I ate 5.7 thousand calories that day.
Yeah.
It was insane. My stomach was so distended.
That was insane.
It was so distended that it hurt. It was like the skin was hurting. My stomach was hurting. It was insane. I had to sleep upright that night because if I didn't, it's so gross. But if I didn't, it felt like vomit was going to just not like projectile vomit, just slowly ooze out, which is
disgusting.
It's so gross. So scale fluctuations, why do they happen? When we eat food, if we have a 12-inch Subway sub, let's say it's 1.5 pounds and it goes from on the table to in my stomach, I'm going to be 1.5 pounds heavier, right? I know how stupid that sounds and how brain dead and obvious that is, but I think a lot of people don't
conceptualize.
Yeah, exactly.
The food you see is going into our bodies and it has to sit somewhere. So it's going to sit in our stomachs.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't just disappear overnight. You don't go to sleep.
Right. It takes time.
Right.
Yeah. For the digestion to happen and for you to, let it go in the toilet. So, we have this fast over every single night where we will metabolize a little bit of energy. And so our weight will come down. We're also sweating quite a bit. So our weight will come down overnight. But yeah, so that's a big one. And then every time you drink water, The water has to sit inside of you. I got a question the other day, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And she said, I'm 3 to 4 pounds heavier every midday than I am in the morning. And I don't understand why. And I, just explained to her, like, well, have you eaten stuff? Have you drank? She said, yeah, I have. And I said, where did it go? She said, in my body. I said, right, exactly. So I think it is something that, people don't necessarily think about as much as they potentially should.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you, let's say you eat something, okay, let's say you have very structured meals and you're very consistent day to day. And then you say, all right, I'm going to start a fat loss phase. And with that fat loss phase, you start eating way higher volume foods. You go from 1 cup of broccoli to 3 cups of broccoli. You go from, I don't know, just like making a lot of different changes, maybe more berries, maybe
Right.
more veggies, things like that. What happens is because your food volume went up, even if you are in a calorie deficit, if your food volume goes up, that's going to be your weight will
Right.
temporarily go up. Now,
Like your stomach content
yeah,
is just
exactly.
increased.
I mean, imagine like 4 Oreos versus that many calories, which would be 70 calories. So 280 calories. Each Oreo is about 70, depending on which one you get. So 280 calories. Think about that in terms of broccoli.
Yeah, that's a lot of food.
It would be a pound
A,
of
a,
broccoli.
a big example of this that we do is swapping white rice for cauliflower rice. You can have like 4 cups of cauliflower rice for like 50 calories.
Yeah.
That is an insane food volume.
Yeah.
And
So they keep going.
I was going to say, and food volume is a great way to like navigate a cut. So we're not saying like, oh, avoid high volume foods because
No.
the scale might go up, but just know that when you eat higher volume, like your weight may not drop the same way you think it's going
Right.
to.
And body fat is still coming down, but sometimes it's not as easy to tell that on the scale. And so that's why it's so important. It's why I'm a huge fan of getting more than one data point per week. And I like, seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of weight data per week and then look at averages and compare them week to week to week to week. And really, I wouldn't make any decisions on calorie cuts, on any calorie adjustments until you've had at least 3 weeks of data. And honestly, maybe scratch that first week. Because that first week, let's say you're going from, okay, I've never tracked my diet before, or maybe I'm at maintenance, whatever it is, or if I'm in a bulk, especially, you're going to be eating a lot more. And then you move into a cut and you go from like, let's say, my weight, I'm like 166 and week 2, I'm 164. I'd be thinking, well, I'm going too fast,
Right.
but it's not body fat. I'm not losing body fat at that rate. It was mostly just the water and the stomach content.
Yeah.
A little bit of glycogen too.
Yeah, the first week can be pretty intense. I also think this is a little off topic, but I also think that if your food volume has increased a lot and you're in a cut for 6-7 weeks and you're like, things don't really seem like they're moving exactly as quick as I think they would. I also think progress photos can be a great,
And
or
measurements.
like measurements. Yeah. Because you can kind of see, okay, my body fat is going down, even if my weight is staying relatively close to the same or not dropping quite as fast as I think it should at this calorie target.
No, it's a really good addition. That's another way to track progress that I didn't even have this written down, but that's a really good point is, the scale is one way to track progress. But let's say somebody was 160 pounds and they lift weights for an entire year, but eating at maintenance. And maybe they're not tracking it, but they're eating at calorie maintenance. Their body composition, if they are lifting weights and getting appropriate protein intake, all the stuff that you need to do for muscle growth, stress management, sleep, etc., their body composition 1 year out will be so drastically different. Their scale weight may be the exact same, but the way they look, the way they feel, how strong they are is going to be so drastically different. I can't overemphasize the importance of getting multiple data points in terms of not just the scale data over time. For sure, that's great, especially for seeing like, are you in a deficit, maintenance, surplus? The scale is how we do that. But in terms of tracking body composition, the scale is the worst tool
Definitely.
ever. I mean,
definitely.
It's a miserable tool. So yeah, progress pictures, I'd be doing those monthly, and then circumference measurements, I'd be doing those. I like doing them once a month, but some people like doing them every 2 weeks. I think if you're doing them once a week, I think that's too frequent.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in that necessarily. Circumference measurement sites that I would recommend, I always say the neck, I always say the waist, and then a lot of times the hips are nice too. And then just any muscle groups that you might want to, see if you have any growth there. So chest, shoulders, biceps, like around the arm. So for biceps and triceps, those are all really good things that you might want to track as well.
Yeah, especially if you have like muscle groups that you're like really targeting. That's
Yeah.
a great way of seeing progress.
So, one thing that's important to talk about is the expected rate of weight loss. And this is expectation management 101. People start a fat loss phase and they think, okay, I have 20 pounds to lose. It's January. Let's wrap this up by end of January.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I think what I think contributed a lot to this is people have done it in the past where they have maybe lost that much weight over time or that fast. But and I say this to hopefully not upset too many people. I think keto was one of the worst things that could have happened to, like, in terms of like a general diet. Now, keto, if you prefer it, it's fine. It's not as good for muscle growth, but
Especially if it's a medical need. I know that
sure.
that's thrown out for like medical needs.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure schizophrenia is,
Epilepsy?
it might be
I
epilepsy.
think it's epilepsy. I don't think it's schizophrenia.
Now that you're saying that out loud, I do not think it's schizophrenia. I think it is.
I don't like to say I'm certain on something, but I'm pretty certain on
I'm just
that.
gonna really quick get a. Yeah, it is indeed epilepsy, not schizophrenia. Although,
Who knows?
for our schizophrenic listeners out there, I'm not gonna make a schizophrenia joke. I was going to, and I don't think that's in good taste. Okay. Anyway, so expected rates. So a really good rate of weight loss would be 0.5 to 1%. Oh, wait, hold on. No, I need to finish that keto rant. Just a second. So the thing about keto is, if you're unfamiliar with a ketogenic diet, it is removing 100% or a very, very large percentage of the carbohydrate intake so that you force your body into ketosis, where it uses protein and fats, mostly fats for energy, but maybe protein too, but probably not protein, honestly. But anyways, carbs are the one macronutrient that isn't technically essential. Now, if we want to have optimal health, they are essential. But in terms of actually just staying alive, we do need protein, we do need fats, we don't technically need carbohydrates. And what happens when we take away carbohydrates from our diet is we will experience a large degree of weight loss immediately, because every gram of carbohydrate, when it gets stored into the body as glycogen, it holds on to 3 grams of water, 3 to 4 grams. So for every 1 gram of carbohydrates, let's say we're eating 300 grams a day, 400 grams a day. 400 would be kind of a lot for most people. Usually between 200 and 300 is pretty normal, depending on your diet. If we are subtracting 400 grams of water, that is, 600, 700, 800 potentially grams of water. That is significant. Can we get a number check on that? Hold on. Let me do that math really quick. Let's say 800. That's 2 pounds right there. And that's not even counting. That's from one day intake. That's not even counting the amount of glycogen that we actually hold in our body, which, to be honest, that'd be tough to quantify for an average, because the amount of muscle that you have and how much you store in your liver, which shouldn't be that much, will change person to person. Mostly muscle. It's one of the areas where we store glycogen. So anyway, people cut out carbs. They experience this massive drop in water weight, and they see this, 3, 4, 5 pound drop on the scale and think, wow, I'm amazing. Like, this is great. This diet has really worked for me. But it has set you up for very poor expectation management in the long run, because it's not going to be that 3, 4, 5 pound weight loss per week. That's going to happen in 1 week. And then as soon as you put carbs back into your diet, you're going to gain all that weight right back. You're going to think you rebounded. You're going to think you're a failure. You're going to think you need to do the diet all over again. And when we look at diets, I don't want them to be like, okay, I'm in this short-term phase to lose weight, and then we go back to my regular way of eating. And technically that is what it is. That is what it is. We are doing this to lose weight, and then we're back to like normal. But normal for a lot of people is probably a mild calorie surplus for the majority of Americans, based on obesity and overweight, rates in America right now. So what I would instead encourage you to look at is, okay, how can I tailor my lifestyle so that I'm getting close to my maintenance calories? And then what kinds of portions would I need to modify in order to move myself into a calorie deficit? Especially if you are somebody with a lot of weight to lose. If you have not just 10 or 20 pounds, but like 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 potentially pounds. This is not a diet. This is not a short-term thing. This is a new lifestyle, because as your body weight comes down, your basal metabolic rate, your energy expenditure will come down too. Now, obviously, there's a few parts that go into that. Do you think I should talk about metabolism, the 4 parts, or anything like that? Maybe not within the scope of this.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So my recommended rate of weight loss is 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week. Let's say you're 150 pounds. A reasonable rate might be 3/4 of a pound to 1.5 pounds. But 1.5 pounds, I know it sounds like 1% body weight per week. Are you serious? That's all I can do? Losing 1.5 pounds per week would be, I'm going to say, borderline not recommended for me.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that have to kind of come into the decision of what rate makes sense for you. And a big one is how manageable is it from an emotion and stress perspective.
Yeah.
Like, especially if this is the first time you've gone through a cut, it can feel very different from your normal day-to-day relationship with food, or like the
Yes.
normal way that you eat. If all of a sudden you're taking out 500-600 calories
Yeah.
per day.
It's significant. And in order to get to about 1.5 pounds, we'd have to be in a 750 calorie deficit
Right.
per day, every single day
Right.
across 7 days. A 750 calorie deficit is so substantial that I honestly can't say I'd recommend it. So for most people, 0.5% body weight per week is probably more realistic. Now, you also have to think about, how much body fat do I have to lose? And if you have more body fat, or you are just a heavier person, you can afford to go quite a bit faster, because your body is burning energy at rest at a much higher rate than somebody who's 120 pounds isn't going to burn nearly as many calories at rest as somebody who's 200, 300 pounds. It'll be exorbitantly different, to the tune of like probably an extra 1,000 calories per day from just that body weight alone. Both body fat and muscle are metabolically active, meaning that they require energy to maintain. So if somebody was just, I'm going to go into the 4 parts of metabolism. I have to. So there are 4 parts to metabolism, or energy expenditure. And the first one is BMR, and that's basal metabolic rate. That is the amount of calories we burn just by being at rest. So if I was laying there in a bed, not moving my hands, not moving my eyes, not speaking, not doing anything like that, that is the amount of calories I burn. For most people, this might be in the neighborhood of about 800 to 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, something like that. Honestly, you don't really need to worry about this. You don't need to worry about any one of these 4 parts in. You definitely don't need to worry about that first one, at least. The next one is your thermic effect of food, or thermic effect of eating. And this is the amount of calories that you burn from the process and digestion of food. So if I were to eat 2,000 calories versus 1,000 calories, there's a pretty big difference in the amount of work that digestion takes. Carbs and fats have about a 5 to 10% thermic effect, meaning 5 to 10% of the calories that you eat from them gets used in the process and digestion, whereas protein, I think it's 20 to 30%. Yeah, 20 to 30%. So if your distribution of what you eat is higher protein, then your thermic effect of food is going to be a little bit higher. Next, there are eat and NEAT. So eat is exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all the calories or energy you burn from planned exercise. And then finally, we have NEAT. And this is the most variable for people. And this is where people will say, like, well, I'm eating 2,000 calories and she's eating 2,000 calories. Why is she losing more weight than me? It's almost certainly because her NEAT is higher. And this is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all energy expenditure that comes from movement and exercise that isn't planned exercise. So it's not your Orange Theory. It's not your workouts, your lifting, your cardio. It is walking around the grocery store. It is talking with your hands. It is tapping your foot. It is doing the dishes. It's, picking up your 80-pound golden retriever. It's things like that. Although I do have to plan that exercise.
Yeah, that's
at this
planned
point.
exercise.
Yeah. So that is going to be very variable. And this is why we talk about step goals pretty often, is to try to increase the calories you burn from NEAT. It really does make a massive, massive difference. So, a few ways that you could increase NEAT: park a little bit farther away at the grocery store.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Pace around the house. Take the stairs instead of an elevator. I mean, for me, pacing the house, I pace probably 3 miles a
You
day
pace nonstop.
nonstop, especially
Yeah.
when I'm in a fat loss phase and I have that step target in mind. I shoot for a minimum of 8,000 steps per day, ideally like 10,000 plus, but we do see diminishing returns with all energy expenditure. So, 2,000 to 8,000 is probably roughly 4 times better in terms of energy expenditure. But from 8,000 to, okay, 32,000, this is an unrealistic example, but I mean, let's just say you're not going to get 4 times greater energy expenditure. Should I talk about the work from Herman Ponzer? I don't know. So Herman Ponzer is an energy expenditure guy. He did this really big study where he was looking at theoretical energy models about how our body kind of adapts to energy. Man, I don't know if I want to get into all that, but basically our body's very efficient and it will adapt to the exercise that we do. And so if we increase our energy expenditure forcefully, by doing it, it will compensate. And that compensation does vary person to person, and it depends on how much exercise you're doing. So this is why we always say you need to focus on your intake and not your output. Also, just as a quick side note, your Apple Watch, your Fitbit, your whatever wristwatch you have is not accurate in terms of energy expenditure. The bike that you're on says you burn 600 calories. You probably didn't. Honestly, one, it'll probably way overestimate it, but let's say it's not overestimating it. It's going to get lucky if it's right. Outside of a lab setting, we have no way to judge energy expenditure. So what we do instead is it's kind of like a formula. It's X plus Y equals Z. X is our calorie intake. Y is our calorie expenditure, which we don't know. And then equals, and then Z is our weight. So we look at our weight over time and we have to make decisions based on that. Right now, we just don't have the technology to be able to accurately determine how much energy we're expending every day. Quite the rant there. Did we cover enough for expected rates? Holy crap. Expected rates. So yeah, you can go faster if you're bigger or if you have more body fat, and you probably don't want to go so fast if you are a little bit leaner, because we do want to shift as much of that to fat loss and not muscle loss as possible. So you just don't want to go too fast. If you do go too fast, there was a big study that looked at what point, what size of a deficit do you stop seeing lean mass gains or like muscle gains? And it, on average, all studies are on averages, but it was a 500 calorie deficit. Greater than that is where they stopped seeing lean mass gains and actually saw people losing muscle. Now, this is not to say like, oh, Alex says if I go into a 500 calorie deficit, that I will lose muscle or I'll stop gaining muscle.
Right.
That's not at all what I'm trying to say here. I have seen people who are overweight go into a 700, 800 calorie deficit and still gain appreciable amounts of muscle over time. But you just have to kind of think about, how much do you have to lose? There was one study, the one from Greg Nuckols it's not Greg Nuckols' study, but he's the one who pointed it out to me. And this guy looked at the amount of energy that you can pull from body fat per pound of body fat per day. So basically like the upper limit of fat loss for each person. And I think the initial study was 32 calories per pound of body fat per day. And so how you would find that is you would take 32 times the pounds of body fat in order to find your pounds of body fat, take your body weight, multiply it by your expected body fat percentage. Honestly, I would just eyeball this. Maybe you could use a circumference calculator online, like
Sure.
calculator.net has one. So you take that, let's say let's do really easy math. You're 160 pounds, you're 10% body fat. So you have 16 pounds of body fat. Multiply that by 32. There you go. That's your max deficit per day. However, the guy in an interview that I cannot find, but Greg Nuckols from an article, like I think 10 years ago, he wrote it, said that he saw in an interview that the guy said his math was wrong and it's really closer to, I think it was 22 or 23 calories per day. Greg just said, let's just round it to 25 for easy rounding. And I like that. Yeah. So let's take that example again, 160 pounds, 10% body fat. We got 16 pounds of body fat. And then you take 16 pounds of body fat times by 25. Can we get a math check on that? 16 times 25 equals 400. So a 400 calorie deficit per day is the potential maximum you might want to go without touching into muscle. it's very important for me to say this is one study. I've never been able to find the interview. I mean, the guy came out years later and said his math was wrong. There are a lot of things here that,
Yeah.
while I like the idea of finding out your max rate of fat loss,
Sure.
I just think it's not realistic to try to worry about the minutia of that too
Sure.
much, and rather kind of use it to like make a relatively informed decision of like, maybe I don't want to be in a 1,000 calorie deficit per day.
Right.
At the end of the day, fat loss isn't about like this perfect rate or anything like that, and it's what can you adhere to. I mean, that's
the big one.
the big one. And
Yeah.
how long can I adhere to it for?
And along with that, what once you're done, are you not going to rebound drastically from?
Yeah. So that actually segues us really, really well into this next part. And it's looking at a calorie deficit on a spectrum. So let's say we're looking at calorie maintenance, which is a 0 calorie deficit, versus a 500 calorie deficit. It is not on or off. You have to be this or this. You know, every day you get a choice to either be a little bit further into a deficit or a little bit not into a deficit. And so days that, you know, let's say, okay, I want to lose fat, don't really care about the rate, just want to try to go about it, you know, in a relatively sustainable way. How I would approach it is, okay, do you have a situation this weekend, you know, an event, you're going out with friends, something like that, and you realize, hey, I need to eat closer to calorie maintenance because it's just unrealistic for me to be in a 500 calorie, 500 calorie deficit. Okay, then just eat a maintenance. If you're eating a maintenance, you're not going to gain body fat. That's totally fine.
If you're still in a deficit, the other 6 days of that week, that one day at maintenance
is totally fine. You're just in a very slightly less of a deficit. So I want you to look at fat loss on a spectrum where, you know, the slower end is you get more muscle gain, but slower fat loss, and faster, you know, faster deficit or a bigger deficit is less muscle growth, but more fat loss. And so it's not like you're losing on either side here. Either you get faster muscle growth or faster fat loss. That's not a bad trade-off either way. So yeah, it's really important that you look at it as a spectrum. It's not, oh, I went over my calorie target. And I also like, you know, when people say like, oh, I'm eating at 1650 calories, give yourself a range.
Right. You don't have to hit exactly that number.
No, all labels are, you know, they're all rounded anyway. So if we look at an Oreo is not exactly 70 calories.
Sure.
Maybe it's 65. Maybe it's 74. Maybe, you know, everything single thing that we do is rounded, and we can try to get as accurate as possible. And this isn't me saying like everything is rounded, so don't use a food scale. No. You still got to use a food scale. At least you probably should, especially if you've never used one before.
Right.
But
yeah, going off of that, one of the most helpful pieces of advice that you gave me when I was going through a fat loss phase, and mine was short, honestly, and like short, we'll just leave it there, was just don't eat past maintenance.
Yeah.
Like if you don't eat past maintenance, you're still in a deficit. Like you don't have to hit this magic number to be in a deficit. If you're 100 calories below maintenance, that's still a deficit. It might go a lot slower.
Yeah, it'll go slower, but you're still losing body fat.
But that's totally fine.
Yeah, 100% fine.
Yeah. And I think that was super helpful. That in addition to the whole, like, look at your entire week. If you know you're going out, or like I went to a state fair one day and I knew I was going to eat fair food, and I wasn't going to like deprive myself from eating fair food because I love it. So I just knew that was going to be a day that I was probably not even going to be at maintenance. I was going to go over.
A little bit over, yeah.
And that's okay. One, I can accept that. I can like mentally prepare myself for that. That's fine. But two, I can also make different choices earlier in the week if I want to cut calories a little bit more on my Monday and Tuesday in preparation for that.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally valid.
That's a topic I thought about going into, and I guess we might as well, is calorie cycling. So if you know that, okay, on Saturday I am going out, I'm going to, maybe I have a wedding, you know, whatever it is, you're going to a fair, whatever it is, and you know that you're going to be eating more calorie dense foods, your calories are going to be up, then what you can do is be chill about this. Don't go crazy, but subtract 50, 100. I probably wouldn't do 200 calories per day, but let's just say you do, 200 be fine probably, but let's say you cut 100 calories off. So let's say somebody's target is 1,500 calories per day. They cut off 100 calories on Monday through Friday. and they allocate them all to Saturday. So we have 100 calories Monday through Friday, 5 days, 500 calories extra. And let's throw that onto the 1,500 calories. So 2,000 calories now.
Right.
500 calories is so significant.
Yeah.
If you did, if you want to do 200, and then you'd have 1,400 on the other days, Monday through Friday. If you did 200 calories, holy crap.
Yeah.
Now you're able to go nuts.
Right.
Now you have 2,500 calories to allocate there. It's so important to look at weekly averages, not just for weight, but also your calories, because the body isn't this, super tightly regulated in terms of energy intake and expenditure, where it's like you have to be on the money every single day. You can really, now on protein and on fiber, you kind of have to be a little bit more on the money with those things. And so for protein, I just like shooting for a minimum, I guess 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And if you have 30 plus pounds to lose, I like using goal body weight. That'd be a really good target. Okay. So speaking of which, we kind of talked about the advice I gave you, which is if you don't feel like being in a deficit, just don't be in a deficit.
Right.
It's not that just eat at maintenance.
Yeah. Sometimes that mental alleviation of like, I just can't
you just
focus on food in that way
can
be such a relief.
Yeah. And I like this analogy that I made up the other day, really tooting my own horn there, which is if somebody's climbing Mount Everest, do they knock it out in an afternoon? Now, I've never climbed Mount Everest, so maybe they do. I don't think they do. I think it's like a pretty big mountain.
Yeah, I think that's quite the commitment.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big commitment. And so you're not going to knock out fat loss in an afternoon. Just like the people on Mount Everest, you're going to need to take breaks. Maybe you don't need to, but you always have the option to.
Definitely.
And that's really important, is when you're climbing Mount Everest, they don't do it in one afternoon. They're setting up camps. They're taking rest. They're going to bed. They are eating meals, they are recovering, because they know it's such a stressor and such a demand that maybe that's what fat loss is for you too. And if you did one maintenance day every single week, you would still get to your goal. If you did one maintenance week, if you alternated fat loss, maintenance, fat loss, maintenance, fat loss, maintenance, yes, you will double the amount of time that you're in a fat loss phase. Some people might think, no, I'm not going to take 52 weeks to get to my goal. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But you just have to kind of audit yourself, realize, and maybe it's a trial and error. Maybe it's just a testing thing of like, how does this go for you? Do you like a more aggressive, shorter cut, or do you just want to kind of maybe make barely any changes to your diet?
Right.
You just cut out, rather than, having 8 alcoholic drinks, you go to 3 or something like that per week. And you might be in fat loss without having to change really much at all. So that could be a good idea. Should I talk about, what? We're going to say metabolic adaptation, because that's like something that I could really get into the weeds on. I'll very briefly mention it. Our metabolism, our energy expenditure will adapt, especially to our intake. So if I'm eating 3,000 calories, I burn about 3,000 per day. If I bring that down to 2,500, I might only burn 2,800, 2,700. Our body just adapts to the inputs that we're putting on it. So again, I will talk about that down the road. Also, because each pound of body fat and muscle is metabolically active, if you go from 200 pounds to 150 pounds, let's say everything else is staying the same, you're walking the same amount, you're exercising the same amount, etc., your energy expenditure will come down. So whether, if you were 200 pounds and you maintained at 2,300 calories and now you're 150 pounds, you're probably not going to you won't maintain at those same calories, again, as long as all things are equal. But a lot of times when people make these, pretty big weight loss drops, their habits are changing with them. And so usually they're moving more. But, just be aware that the calories that you maintained at the beginning of your fat loss phase, they almost certainly will not be the same at the end of it. Okay. This has been really good so far. All right. The last thing that we wanted to talk about are the practical tips. And I only had like one of these, and Maddie was just kind of rattling these off before the podcast started. And I was like, okay, let's keep going with this. So let's go through these. Why don't you present them? I've been talking a lot.
Okay. So one of the big ones is, I'm going to say I'm not a coach. Let me just get that. When I say I really mean that Alex says this, or like people in the space say this a lot. But when we say like all foods fit, or you know, like we can still eat our favorite foods in a calorie deficit. Yes, that is absolutely 100% truthful. However, we do have to kind of consider what that actually looks like. Because if your favorite food is, we'll take some of my favorite foods, for example. I love fettuccine Alfredo. But the way I eat fettuccine Alfredo day to day is probably not going to look the exact same as how I eat it when I'm in a calorie deficit. So, some ways that we can kind of make all foods fit is one, do you need to swap ingredients? Like, is there a lower calorie option that you can modify your recipe with?
Sauce, pasta.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything like that.
definitely.
Using a little bit less oil.
Yep.
Yep.
But also, your portion sizes can just be smaller.
Yes. You can probably eat the exact same foods as you were before, just in smaller quantities.
Yeah. Even if you drop your quantity by 20%,
Yeah.
like that's going to be a huge
Massive
change. So, you know, if you want to have fettuccine Alfredo, or if you want to have Little Caesars pizza, we love Little Caesars pizza.
Yeah.
You know, instead of getting the extra large stuffed crust, maybe you get a medium stuffed crust. Your slices are going to be a little smaller, but you're still enjoying those foods that you love to eat. And then on the side, maybe instead of having 3 slices of pizza, maybe you have 1 slice of pizza and you order a side salad.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you can still enjoy those favorite foods, but what do you add to them, or how do you modify them in order to meet your goals a little easier? Vegetables are a big one, like increasing the number, like the amount of fiber that you're getting, or the like adding in a salad on the side of your meals, things like that.
Yeah.
Can go a really long way.
Yeah. A good fiber target to hit is from the American Heart Association. They recommend 14 grams per 1,000 calories. So that seems like a shock to a lot of people when they first start tracking. Like, let's say they're just eating and they start tracking their foods for the first time. Legitimately, they might be at, depending on how, you know, whole foods versus highly processed foods their diet is, they could be at 3, 4, 5, 6 grams. And it's a big wake up call if they're eating 2,000 calories. And I'm like, I want you to be getting 28 grams of fiber per day.
Yeah.
That is a massive wake up call. So
fiber, I find to be one of the harder targets to actually hit.
Yeah, protein is easy, calories are easy,
yes. Fiber can be really tricky because
a bit more diligent.
Yeah, and like a lot of the foods that they say, oh, like your leafy greens, lettuce is
a scam.
Lettuce has like no fiber at all. Like,
it's great in terms of like being a high volume food.
High volume,
you can eat so much and it'll fill you up, but it doesn't have that much fiber.
No. Yeah, even like your broccoli, you might have to double the amount of broccoli you eat in a meal.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to fiber, if you're someone who's a little sensitive,
don't eat it at once. Don't do too much. Don't try to do like 20 grams in one sitting.
Spread it out. I'm someone who gets extremely bloated from like too much fiber in one meal to the point where it's like nauseating. Yeah. So that's one thing that I think is a really hard one.
While we're on the topic of
navigate.
Bloating, if you do struggle with bloating, the 3 tips that I would, there are a lot of reasons that it might be happening, but the 3 things that I would recommend: first, start drinking more water. That is a very, very easy one. 2, slow down your rate of eating. That is one that I've been telling you to do.
I'm really bad about that.
It does go a long way. I mean, that is like the tip for fat loss, the tip for bloating, the tip for hunger management. If you can slow down the rate that you're eating, it doesn't have to be anything drastic. One of my clients about a year and a half ago asked me, do I have to slow down? Or like, I hate chewing slowly. And I realized, oh my gosh, no, you don't have to chew slowly. You can chew at the same rate. It's just don't queue up the next bite of food while you're still eating one. Yeah. And I think this is something that is so subconscious. You know, we're always just, whether we're in the middle of work or, you know, if you have kids or whatever it is, if you just want to do something else, you know, you're just trying to get through your meal pretty quick. Yeah. Or if you're just hungry. I mean, that's it for me a lot of times is I'm just hungry. And so I'm just like throwing it down as fast as I can. But really, if I want to, and this is something I'm very particular about when I'm in a fat loss phase, I slow down my rate of eating drastically. All right. So drink more water, slow down your rate of eating. And then third, split out your fiber intake across multiple meals. Don't try to get 80% of it in one meal. Yeah. And kind of maybe experiment with it. Certain people will also be a little bit more sensitive to different sources of fiber. So you might just be aware of that. The next practical tip is that the serving size on the box doesn't mean your serving size. Yeah. So the Oreo serving size, I mean, I know this nutrition label like the back of my hand, is 2 Oreos. So it's 140 calories, but you don't have to eat 2 Oreos. Right. And that's kind of a weird example, but Pasta is a big one,
Yeah.
rice, things like that. Chicken. They might say like, what's
Sauces.
sauces.
Sauces are a really big one. Like when you read a bottle of ketchup, or I don't eat a lot of condiments, so I don't actually know calorie content on all of these, but
Like Alfredo.
yes, any sort of sauce, like you don't have to use a fourth cup of Alfredo sauce for your meal. You can decrease that. One thing that I do, or like was doing when I was in a calorie deficit, was I eat massive salads. I love like a really big chicken Caesar salad. And what I would do is, what is the most amount of lettuce and vegetables and chicken and all of that? What is the most amount of that I can do with the least amount of dressing and still enjoy my chicken Caesar salad?
Right.
Because
you still have to enjoy it.
You have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And those calories are going to add up quickly from your dressings. And that's totally okay. But for me, when I'm in a calorie deficit, I want to make sure that a majority of my calories are coming from either my carbs or my protein, because those are going to be the things that I kind of enjoy.
You enjoy the most.
And they're going to make me feel fuller a little longer.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they talk about fat loss, they're very concerned about water intake. And that is something that I think has gotten a little bit out of hand. Honestly, people are very concerned about their water intake goals. And it is this simple. Drink enough that you are not thirsty and that your urine is clear or very slightly yellow. That is it. I mean, on all the recommendations for water intake that I've ever seen, that is the best recommendation we possibly have.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
It is. People try to hit these ridiculous water intake goals of 2 times I don't even want to recommend that. I'm not recommending that, but I don't even want to say it. But it's good. A decent starting point is half your body weight in ounces. So if you're 160 pounds, 80 ounces of water, that's a good starting point. But don't feel like, I have to hit that. Your water intake recommendations could be a little bit higher if you're somebody who sweats more, if you're in a humid environment, if it's hot out, etc. So, if you're exercising a lot. So don't worry too much about water intake. But a lot of times people will confuse thirst and hunger. It's just two sensations that are pretty similar. So, if you notice like, hey, I'm a little bit hungry, I'm not saying don't go eat something. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say, but maybe have a sip of water and just see how you feel after a minute. And that actually brings me to another point, is diet soda. I think eventually we should do an episode on a deep dive on aspartame and stuff like that. But the Cliff Notes version right now is diet soda, aspartame. It is 100% safe. So don't worry about it at all. I have posts on this, until the podcast episode that we do on that, which will honestly probably be a ways down the road. But diet soda is great.
Yeah.
It's very, very helpful for scratching that sweet craving with 0 calories. I mean, it's as close to a diet cheat code as you could possibly get.
Yeah, that's actually a practical tip that we don't have on here. One of the, I don't want to say easiest, but for me, one of the easiest swaps to make when I'm in a calorie deficit is just taking out my liquid calories.
Yeah, just reducing liquid calories.
Yeah, so if you drink pop or juice or
Starbucks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you're a Starbucks drinker, you might want to switch to like at home.
400 to 700, maybe even 800 calories.
Yeah, but just swapping your liquid calories, or just being really aware of what liquid calories you are consuming, can make a really big difference.
Yeah. Sauces and liquid calories, mitigate those, you're in a really good spot. Next is sleep. So sleep, I know that we will definitely be doing a future podcast episode specifically on sleep, the benefits of it, how to improve it, quality, quantity, all that stuff, naps. I've talked quite a bit about this. The Forward Forever members have a deep dive where I go into all the stuff on sleep, how menopause affects it, etc. But for now, just know that if your sleep is reduced, you're probably going to be hungrier. You're going to be building less muscle. You're going to be, it's not a good place to be. Try to maximize your sleep as much as possible, both quantity and quality. Actually, we just bought a 8 Sleep. This is not sponsored or anything like that, but I wish
it was.
Yeah, seriously. But we haven't tested it out yet. It'll be coming in about a week from today.
We'll give you an update when it comes.
So we'll give you an update.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's basically like a heating and cooling pad. It's like water cooled and heated, and like Maddie and I can have separate sides, so our preferred temperature. It tracks our heart rate variability, all that stuff. Should be pretty cool. We'll give you an update when we get it, though.
Maybe that'll be when we do our sleep episode.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
One other thing, this is kind of anecdotal, but when you're in a calorie deficit, you might go to bed and have hunger pains. Yeah. And one thing that I noticed that really helped mitigate that, for me, it was like a really high volume snack, like an hour or so before bed, hour and a half. For me, it was popcorn.
Yep.
Every single night,
popcorn.
I would do stovetop popcorn because
it's slightly lower calorie.
Slightly lower calorie.
I think it has a little bit more fiber in it too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I would do like 200 calories, like a giant bowl
It's
of popcorn.
giant bowl, like this big for people who are watching on video.
Yeah, huge. And that helped so much with just not feeling hungry, because if you're hungry in
sleep
bed,
quality goes down.
You just can't fall asleep if you have these like stomach pains.
Yeah.
So that can be a really, really terrible like side effect of calorie deficit. So I would definitely try to figure out either like your meal spacing or like some sort of snack, right? Like not right before bed necessarily, but
just allocate some calories for that.
Yeah. I think that is so helpful.
A pretty common one often when I'm in a fat loss phase is a bunch of Greek yogurt with some strawberries thrown in. That's, 150 calories, 200 calories, and very, very filling. But popcorn's a great one.
We used to do Ninja creamy ice cream.
Creamy, ice cream.
If you have like, I used to decide, do I need to hit my protein target or do we need to hit my fiber target?
Yeah.
And that would decide
popcorn or ice cream.
Yeah, it was either popcorn or ice cream based on that.
There was something I was going to say on that specific note. Shoot. Well, whatever. Anyway, we'll move on to stress. So stress there isn't like a physiological way that stress, there's a lot out there, a lot of misinformation about cortisol and stress and all that kind of stuff. And again, maybe future podcast episode, but stress won't directly cause you to gain weight. Maybe you'll hold on to some water, honestly, a little bit, but it won't make you hold on to body fat. What it will do is if you're stressed, a lot of times we turn to a quick hit of dopamine, which, hey, it's a Rice Krispie treat, right. it's a drink, it's a, whatever it is. And so in that way, stress can have a pretty significant impact. And those are the times when you're going through a more stressful period. Those are the times when I'd say maybe a diet break is a really smart thing to do right now, whether it's 1, 2, 3 days, maybe it's 7 days, maybe it's just put fat loss on hold for 2, 3, 4 weeks. We can still make progress. You don't need to be in a calorie deficit to make body composition progress.
Sometimes even being in maintenance is progress. If you can maintain your weight, especially if you've been in a cut so far and now you're maintaining at this new lower weight, that's huge.
Yeah, somebody in Forward Forever mentioned every single holidays I gain 5 pounds. This is the first time in my life I have not put on 5 pounds. I haven't gained a single pound this holiday, and that is such a win. I was like, that is an absolute win.
That's amazing.
Not only that though, but again, I do want to go back to the earlier example. Is somebody's 160 pounds. It could be whatever weight, 200, 100, doesn't matter. But if you stay the exact same weight, but you're lifting and you're taking your sets close to failure and you're doing all the stuff that you need to be doing and you're gaining muscle, you're gaining strength, you will gain muscle faster at maintenance than you will in a deficit. That is very conclusive, and you'll gain muscle a little bit faster in a small calorie surplus. Don't start bulking yet. Save it for the bulking episode, which again, we will do.
Yeah, I think when it comes to stress, a big thing is if you have these external stressors in your life, do you want to be focused on food? Because when you are cutting, you start thinking about food in a way that you probably weren't thinking about it before.
Yeah.
Like I used to spend a lot more time pre-planning. Or
sometimes even the night before.
Before I would be in bed.
Yeah.
Like calorie counting what I planned on eating the next day to see like, oh, what snacks can I add in, or like, which is a great strategy. Like, I'm not saying that that's something you shouldn't be doing by any means. It can start
to get a little weird though.
But it can definitely be a little like, wait, I don't want to be thinking about food this much.
And that's like actually 10 p.m. in bed. I'm ready to fall asleep and I'm planning out what I'm going to eat tomorrow. And I'm not just like planning it from like a strategic point of view. A lot of times that's what it is.
Sure.
But there is a point where you kind of have to do
a cut.
Yeah, where you have to do a mental check and it's like, wait, hold on. Okay. I'm getting excited at the thought of eating stuff tomorrow. That's where it's like, okay, I need to pull back a little bit.
Exactly. I was going to say that might be a sign that like it's time to kind of reel it in. Like you don't necessarily need to be thinking about food in that way.
Right.
Like you can kind of cool it sometimes.
Yeah. And I think this is a good part to actually add in here of what apps we recommend for calorie tracking.
Oh yeah.
So MyFitnessPal is the #1 app that I would never recommend under any circumstance, because when they took away the calorie tracker or the barcode scanner, let me say, shout out to them, because that's how Danielle and I met.
Oh yeah.
They sent an email saying on October 1st, 2022, they're getting rid of barcode scanning. Got that email. we had Qdoba out here. I'm a Chipotle guy, but whatever. And I said, hold on, I need to make a video about this right now. Made a video about it. Anyway, long story short, Danielle and she saw that video, stitched it. I reached out. Now we work together. Danielle, the dietitian. If somebody here doesn't know her, that'd be weird. So the apps that I do recommend for a free app, Chronometer is great.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah,
that's what I'm currently using.
That's what you're currently using. And then since September of 2021, I've been using MacroFactor basically every single day. I'm an affiliate. If you use code Alex, you get a 2-week free trial. I absolutely love it. And the biggest reason is because it coaches you and it adjusts your expenditure and your calorie targets and your macro targets as a whole based on data over time. So, you know how I said you like make those adjustments. So for Forward Forever members, very exciting. Last night, actually, I finished the Calorie Adjuster, which is the craziest tool. And, you know, people will enter in their data and then it gives them updated targets based on their preferred rate and the rate that they're currently going and all that and their current intake. But MacroFactor has all that built in. So
yeah,
it's just been phenomenal. It's gotten me through every bulk and cut at the exact rates that I want to go. It updates it based over, you know, on my data. So anyway, code Alex, you get a 2-week free trial.
Yeah, MacroFactor is great. Like if you want to spend money and you have like a really, especially if you have like a pretty drastic number that you want to hit, I think that it can be so useful for cut. When I was cutting, I paid for MacroFactor because it's insane.
Yeah. And she used code Alex.
I did.
For a 2-week free trial. It also supports me monetarily, obviously. Okay. So back to the practical tips, man, we got on a tangent there. So yeah, Chronometer and MacroFactor, those are two good apps. Practical tips now. Leaner cuts of meat. This is honestly a really easy one, especially for things like for chicken. Okay. I mean, the difference between chicken breast and chicken thighs, like there's quite a big flavor difference there. And so if you prefer chicken thighs, I don't think that that's going to be like, oh, I'm in a deficit or I'm not in a deficit. But for ground beef, this is huge. Going from 80-20 or something like that, or 70-30 to a 90-10, a 96-4. And don't feel like you have to get the same percentage every time. Right. When we go to the grocery store, we just go with whatever's kind of on sale.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to look for like the leanest cut that's still on sale. One thing that I think is kind of overlooked is pork.
Yeah.
I know for religious reasons, not everyone eats pork. Not telling you that you have to by any means, but pork is, I think, overlooked in a lot of ways. Definitely. Like your pork tenderloin, your pork shoulder, things like that can be really useful, especially if you're someone who eats a lot of chicken when you're cutting.
Yeah, nice change up.
Yeah, it can be a great change.
Yep. Next, this is a pretty obvious one, but more fruits and veggies. And this is honestly just from a standpoint of more food volume. You know, fruits and veggies are very low calorie, very high food volume. This is something that you can fight against hunger, but you're not going to win it. Over time, hunger will win eventually. And so if you are not managing your hunger pretty well, fat loss is going to be very, very difficult. So this should be a priority. Honestly, if you're hungry, like a little hungry, totally fine, totally expected. Your body is ripping itself apart. I mean, that's such a dramatic way of saying it, but like your body is using stored energy for fuel. So of course it's going to send that signal of like, hey, we're hungry because we're not getting enough food in. That's normal. That's expected. But if you are painfully hungry, moderately aggressive hungry, and it's week 1, you're either in way too big of a deficit or you're not eating enough high volume food. So all foods should be considered on a spectrum of low volume to high volume, you know, low satiating to high satiating on a per calorie basis, and then less nutrient dense and more nutrient dense. And if you can choose more foods that are highly nutrient dense and highly satiating, like fruits and veggies, like lean proteins, you're going to be in really good shape for a fat loss phase. We have 3 practical tips left and then we'll wrap it up. So next is a step goal. So, you know, I talked about this earlier in the podcast, so not going to touch on this too much, but it's just steps aren't some kind of magical thing that we need to worry about. It's just a way to track general activity over time. Throw on, you know, we have pedometers built into our smartphones at this point. A lot of us have them on our wrists at this point. So it's just a decent way to see how active you are during a day. If you're somebody who's getting 2,000 steps per day, which that might seem really low for people who are currently tracking steps and are way higher than that, but that's honestly relatively normal for people who aren't like waiters, waitresses, teachers.
Yeah.
People who just sit the majority of the day.
A lot of desk workers.
Yeah. Back in 2020, I was looking at my like annual averages And in 2020, I think my average was like 2,300 steps per day.
Yeah.
Now it's like 8,500 steps per day. So obviously 2020 was kind of a
It's a weird
weird
one.
year, you know?
Yeah, there might be reasons.
Yeah,
It's a little lower.
there might be one reason in particular that it was a little bit lower. But a step goal is a really good idea. 6K steps, 8K steps, 10K steps, any one of those are very solid. Don't feel like if you're at 2K, you need to go for 10. Just focus on doing a little bit more. You know, shoot for a minimum every day. And if you can get beyond that, or again, you could look at these on averages. You know, if one day you're getting 4,000, but then the next day you get 10,000, you're doing pretty good. Next is eating slowly. Obviously, I already talked about that. Don't queue up your next bite before you've finished. Like, chew your current food twice as much.
Put your fork down.
Put your fork down.
Yeah.
Put the fork down. Put the spoon down. Put the burger, the taco, the pizza down. Don't feel like you just need to like chew, 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 bite, chew, 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 bite. You know, it's every single time. Just take a deep breath, you know, like when you get your food in front of you.
Sip some water.
Sip some water. You know, take a bite. Chew it twice as much as you think you need to. Swallow. Kind of glance around the room, observe your surroundings, take a sip of water, maybe make a conversation, and then go back for another. The rate of eating that most people go at is unbelievable. So if you can slow down the time that it takes for you to finish a meal, your satiety will skyrocket because it does take time for there's stretch sensors in our stomach, and as our stomach expands, it sends a signal to our brain that's like, hey, we're getting kind of full. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, I think it's going into clinical studies right now, a vibrating pill that people swallow, and it's supposed to stimulate satiety.
That's really interesting.
By stimulating those stretch sensors in the stomach. So yeah,
that's really interesting.
Potentially promising, but it'll be curious to see how that pans out. I do wonder, will it like vibrate in your esophagus as you swallow it? Because that would be miserable, I think.
Yeah, it'd be a tough sensation.
Like, does it vibrate on the way out? Or I don't know.
Yeah, eating slowly. I think a big one is if you're eating like finger foods. Like if you're eating pizza, like put it down. I know I eat so fast. Yeah. So this is a really big one that I am like still working on.
Definitely. And then the last practical tip is high volume foods, but especially if you're a snacker. And so Maddie's a huge snacker. I don't really snack that much. I always tell people, oh, hamstring cramp. We're fine. We're good. It was starting. We're good. I just had to stretch out my leg. Scary. So anyway, high volume foods. I'm not much of a snacker. I always recommend people try to get the majority of your calories, especially in a fat loss phase, in meals. Try to hit 30 grams plus per meal, you know, hit the fiber targets, you know, whatever. But some people like to snack.
Yeah.
Maddie's a big snacker.
I'm a snacker, especially when I'm doing like really tasky things at work. And I think for me, it started when I was in college and I'd be like studying. And I noticed that there will be days where I like won't necessarily be hungry for lunch, but I'll be munchy or something like that. And just making the switch to like, I don't want to say smarter choices necessarily, but just like
high volume choices.
Yeah, just being aware of what snacks that I kind of keep on hand or in my office. For me, it's like grapes or strawberries.
Frozen grapes especially.
Frozen grapes are my favorite. Yeah. And that also helps with like eating slowly too. Yeah. But something like that back like when I was talking about popcorn, there would be days that I would split the amount of popcorn I would eat into like one is a snack portion for during my workday. And then one would be, right before bed to help with,
hunger.
Yeah. But that's a really big one. If you're a snacker, find some sort of like high volume food that kind of makes that a little easier.
Definitely. Okay. Anything you want to wrap this one up with? We talked about how to set up a fat loss phase. We talked about tips, notes. We talked about scale fluctuations, expected rates, how to look at a spectrum, how to use diet breaks. Wow. We covered a lot today.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to top this one.
This was a good one.
This was a great one.
Yeah.
Okay. If you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star review. Obviously, since it's episode 1, if somebody were to give us a 1-star review, that would absolutely destroy us. So if you are thinking, wow, this is a 1-star quality podcast, just forget you ever listened to it. Just scratch it out, And if it's a 5-star, amazing. We appreciate you so much. Please feel free to DM me on Instagram at AlexTeamyFitness if you have any questions. Do you want to mention your Instagram account handle yet, or do you want to keep it secret for now?
I mean, by the time that this actually gets posted,
probably post in the next few days.
Yeah, it'll probably be live then. Cool. By then. Yeah. So I guess, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, okay. Sure. Go for it.
So one thing, transparently, Alex doesn't cook.
Yep. Very rarely.
Yeah, very rarely. I do a lot of the cooking, love it. But we know that food content, nutrition content, meals are something that people really want to see. They're curious about it, especially like, what does Alex eat in
Yep.
a day?
Yep.
And a lot of that is kind of what I handle.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2024, I'm starting, it's called Meals with Maddie on Instagram. Well, my TikTok is just Maddie Teamy.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'll be sharing high protein meals,
Easy meals,
low calorie
low
meals.
cook meals.
Low cook meals is a big
Yep.
one, especially like budget friendly ways of getting 30 grams of protein in a meal. I feel like that can be challenging.
Yep. All right. So follow her at Meals with Maddie. Follow me at Alex Timmy Fitness. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you want to support us, the A Team is a group training program that I have. They're both home gym and full gym options, although transparently, both teams get access to both options. That's $27 a month with 7-day free trial and Forward Forever. If this podcast is out in time, our current cycle is open. Registration is open through January 7th, and we start on January 8th. If it's past that, we'll start the next cycle sometime in February, I think second or third week.
Yeah, mid-February.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.